Welcome to Auto Care On Air, a candid podcast for a curious industry. I'm Jacki Lutz, Content Director at the Auto Care Association, and this is Carpool Conversations, where we collaborate on today's most relevant power skills. We are all headed in the same direction, so let's get there together. Today's topic is all about introverts and extroverts. I have with me my co-host, Stacey Miller, VP of Communications at the Auto Care Association. Stacey and I really made a great pair for hosting this topic because we are both a little bit more middle of the road when it comes to being introverted or extroverted. She definitely leans more on the introverted side, and I lean more on the extroversion side. But since Stacey and I really had the middle of the road covered, I needed guests that were at the opposite ends of the spectrum. For a far on the extroverted spectrum, I immediately thought of my friend, Matt Fowler, head of sales at Visual SKUs. He is also the current chair of the Auto Care Association's under 40 community called Yang. He is the poster child for extroversion with little to no introversion in him. And for the far on the introverted spectrum person, I really didn't have to look very far either. My dear friend, Meagan Moody, head of customers and strategy for ZF Aftermarket, quickly came to my mind. And I really learned a lot from this conversation. I always considered myself a pure extrovert, just loving social situations and being around people. I am a pretty open book and I connect very easily with others. But you'll find as we get going in this conversation, I found myself relating quite a bit to some of what the introverts say as well. So I really started questioning my extroversion, and I think I might be more of an ambivert. But that's really great insight to have about myself. So I'm really hoping this does the same thing for you. You'll be getting 4 perspectives from all over the spectrum, and I hope it helps you learn a little bit more about yourself and also how to work better with those around you. So thank you so much for being here. Let's ride. An introvert is a person, I hate this sentence.
Yes.
An introvert is a person with qualities of a personality type known as introversion. Wow, great. No kidding.
Introverts are introverted. I just want you to know
I told
that.
myself I wouldn't read that sentence. What a waste
Can
of
you
breath.
imagine having to have typed that?
Oh,
Like,
fire them.
The chat GPT right then?
like you're trying to get like 200 words in your document. And you're like, an introvert is someone who is in the world of the other introverts that's kind of introverted.
Yeah.
But which means that they feel more comfortable focusing on their inner thoughts and ideas rather than what's happening externally. They enjoy spending time with just 1 or 2 people rather than large groups or crowds.
That last part, hands down, I agree with. But the first part is where I still struggle a bit.
So for me, what I hear with that is, like you mentioned earlier, Friday afternoon, you want to be laying in the hammock with a book, you know, and I'm like, the idea of sitting somewhere quietly with my thoughts is absolutely awful.
I like it. I would love to do that. Again, I have toddlers, so maybe I'm in a weird time of my life.
I have a puppy. It's basically the same thing.
Yeah. Well,
Just
well,
kidding.
I'm also a big reader. Like, I don't mind my alone time and
Like,
quiet.
I don't spend any time in silence ever. Like that seems awful to me.
Stacey, how do you interpret it? I generally agree. Like as a self-proclaimed somewhat introvert, I do take more time with my own inner thoughts and ideas. Like I think about my mannerisms and my personality just in general, both in and out of the workplace. Like I am more likely to sit and deeply think on a project or a program. I am more likely to sit in thought without music or without distraction because I want to have the internal dialogue on something. And I'm more likely to flesh out an idea by myself and take it from start to finish without necessarily asking others for feedback. So for me, I interpret that maybe as some independence, like the introversion causes some independence because you want to think and figure it out yourself. That to me is what the inner thoughts and ideas mean and what I interpret that as. So I see that part as true.
I would agree with that because on a more extroverted side, I love quiet time and fleshing out ideas. And I love that deep thought time. I love it. It's when I'm most creative. But then I love the collaborative part next. So I want to flesh that idea out between a lot of different people and get a collaborative environment going and get more thoughts and opinions on it. And then by the time I'm done doing that, it's usually morphed into something that was not my original idea, but it's way better in my opinion. But yeah, I could totally see that because I don't think I'd feel comfortable just going forward with just my thoughts. I don't trust that at all.
Same.
Yeah. Do you think that people who elect to work remote or are really gung-ho about remote work are inherently introverted? Or no?
Because I'm not.
How?
I'm like 50-50 about when I want to work from home, though. I feel like I liked it in the beginning. And then after 3 years of it, I'm like, I need to talk to somebody face to face. There was a while there where like all of a sudden you're like, I haven't spoken to a human face to face in 3 days.
I couldn't agree more. Because like I love the flexibility of working remote. I probably would have very little opportunities from where I live. And because I live so far out, I get up really early to get to an office at 8, like really early. So I get a lot of my time back, which is important. But after a week of just being by myself in my attic, I am like dying for some social time.
Yeah, and even as an introvert, for me, and that goes to the spectrum comment of like, where are you on introvert versus extrovert? Because for myself, I hit a limit of working from home. And I also, and this is interesting based on like the definitions we looked at earlier, because I actually go to the office sometimes in order to make sure, like to kind of like help myself get stuff done. I feed off of kind of that environment a little bit in order, but that's, I think, the creative side of me where I need a little bit of noise, of interaction in order to kind of get some of that stuff done. So I can't work from home 100%. I need to occasionally go and get the people interaction.
I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Even though I'm introverted,
Yeah.
once in a while, it's a little too lonely.
Yeah.
Not seeing anyone.
Yeah.
And I don't even have the option to go to an office.
Yeah.
If I want to go to an office, it's a client's site.
But do you travel a lot?
I do travel a fair bit, but that's the only thing that saves it is because like there's some times where you just want to like bounce ideas, and it's not like I want to set up a Teams meeting and I want to sit down and I want to do this. I want to like when I had my old team, all of my one-on-ones were walking. So we would walk the entire office while we were chatting and like getting things done, because that was the way to kind of keep things moving. Because I felt like sometimes if you're just sitting there staring either at a screen or even just in a conference room and you're just like, I'm like, okay, I need to move. Like I need to go be with people. And that's just where you draw that energy, which that's the extrovert side, obviously.
Yeah.
But introverts are like, no, I want to have this conversation in a quiet room. I'm like, or what if we walked out on the studio floor full of 45 photographers and we talked instead?
It might be why I network so hard when I'm at events, though. Because like when I go to like Connect or I go to Apex, I cram those days until late at night, and I get up early. I get to the breakfast, but it's probably because I am cooped up in an attic most of my life.
And getting it all out of your system.
Yeah.
She sounds a little Harry Potter-ish there, like cramped
Under the boy under the cupboard.
I was thinking Flowers in the Attic. What was that movie? She like locked her daughter
It sounds terrifying. I don't know what it is, but I don't need to.
Well, I always think of it like introversion, extroversion. There are plenty of public speakers that were, I mean, Steve Jobs, right? Very much so an introvert, but the face of Apple, right? But when it comes to introversion and extroversion, I always look at it as like, where do they recharge? Like, do they recharge alone in their own space, or do they recharge in a big group, like having those conversations and like being out? Like for me, if I don't get out and go see people after a few days, I'm like dragging. Where some people are like, okay, I've seen people for too many days. I need, like when I come back from a conference, I'm pumped and ready to go and get things done. When you come back from a conference, you're like, I think I'm going to sit in a box for a week and just like digest everything that happened. And I'm like, let's go get things done, which makes it hard sometimes when you get back and you're like, okay, I'm ready to go. Because for me, I've just rebuilt all the energy and I'm ready to go crush it. And you're like, I need to get my energy back.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Recognizing those two things can be hard at work, because that's where you're going to instantly clash of like, no, I need a second to think about this. And the extrovert's like, let's get going.
Yep. No,
let's not waste time.
I think that's a perfect example. I mean, especially like you're in sales, Matt. You come back from a conference and all you want to do is like jump on all the leads that you got. Whereas I come back, and even if I connected with a salesperson at a conference that like I know I really need to go up down that path, it's like, don't dare contact me on that Monday after the conference, because I need my days. Like I'm someone that like I think it, you know, the spectrum of what introversion to extroversion of, but your comment you made, Matt, specifically about where do you get your energy to reboot? that to me helps define you towards one end or the other. And your comment of you get it from people, and if you don't see people in 3 days, you've got to go get people to reboot. Me, if I travel all week or I'm in the office all week, Friday night, I am here. I'm on my couch. I'm reading a book. It's quiet. There is no noise. It's just me recharging.
That sounds absolutely awful.
Exactly. And it's perfect for me.
That's why I live in downtown Chicago.
As a mother of toddlers, it sounds wonderful. Tell me everything. Heaven. Tell me everything.
Let me tell you, because the best part is during the summer where you can take that whole mode and go out in the hammock. So, yeah.
Yeah, like a social recharge is important for introverts, and you have a social meter that depletes every couple of minutes or every couple of hours. The more you're at one of those networking events, and there's a point where you have to throw in the towel, go back, recharge, have some alone time, and then come back so you can focus on it.
Yeah, those networking events that you bring up is a good point, because for me, small talk, I can't.
I'm jealous of people who can make good small talk.
Do small talk.
That's acquired skill.
I need the value. I need the connection. Because if it's small talk, like I can last a lot longer when I'm having valuable conversations with people, a lot longer. But you put me in a small talk only, like, oh, how was your day? What do you do? Da, da, da. I'm dead in 30 minutes.
Well, it's a skill to pull people out of small talk. Like asking the right questions is something that it's a learned skill over time for sure. When it comes to networking, right? Like everyone starts with, oh, it's sunny. And it's like, where do I go from there? Like, how sure is.
Good job.
Like, I hope you put on your SPF. Like, there's nowhere to follow that up. But like you said, if you're asking the right questions, you're like, hey, what are you excited about today?
Yep.
I forget who it was as a comedian. His favorite question to ask people is like, what's the last thing you changed your mind on? And I'm like, if someone asks you that, I'm like, first, I'm like, every morning. If there's something, my mind changes all the time. But like, that's part of introversion and extroversion. That's part of just people being bad communicators. But I always see at conferences, you can kind of pick out the people who are more introverted, because those are the ones that are like, I've got to go get some things done. And they go back to their room for 2 hours. And then they come back and they're ready to go. And they're this. And then you've been out this whole time. Like, I wish we didn't have to sit for part of this. Like, I can be talking. We're very valuable time of me talking and listening and all those things. Because like, that's the other, I think, common misconception is like, extroverts don't always have to be talking. They can be part of the conversation and listening, and that's still getting that bit. Don't get me wrong. Many of us do tend to talk a lot, but we don't always say a lot.
I disagree with that.
It's true.
I think you have a lot of interesting things to say.
Well, yeah.
Matt,
not always.
Okay, yeah, not always.
There are some people who, I've known introverts that feel the need, like, they're like, well, for me to fit in, I have to be talking. So people will think that I'm approachable and da-da-da-da. And it's like, well, people can usually tell if it's forced too. Like, if it's not your natural state to be the center of the conversation, unless you need to be, like, don't feel like you have to be. And on the flip side, an extrovert being like, my natural tendency is to be in the center of the room. And I feel like because I'm around introverts, I need to stand back. And it's like, well, sometimes just play with that medium a little bit and see where everybody else is. Because some people might expect you to take that role up because they know you well enough to know, like, when Matt walks in, he's going to talk to everybody that's here and find out what's going on and da-da-da-da. I'm going to sit back for a minute. But if I come in thinking, okay, I know there's a lot of introverts, I should probably turn that side of my brain on. And then everybody that was with me is like, so what happened? And you're like, oh, I was supposed to do that. Like, I thought I was blending in better by changing. And over time, you realize that usually doesn't work.
What's the biggest struggle of an extrovert that's very far on the spectrum, like you?
Get your feelings hurt a lot. Because, like, well, if you think about it, right? So, like, if I wanted to have a conversation with Meagan and she's like, get out of my office. And it's not because she's mad at me. It's not because anything's wrong. It's she's like, I can't talk to you and get this done at the same time. Where an extrovert's like typing with this hand and this hand while listening to a podcast and eating. And like, that's just, we're moving. We're constantly moving.
But I will tell you, and maybe this is not an introverted thing, but maybe it's just, one piece of my personality. But I will tell you that when I see people doing that, like that little situation, and I could even think about it when you and I were recently on a phone call, Matt.
I'm baking very often when I'm on phone calls.
I could literally, he was doing like 3 things at once. And I'm sitting here going, okay, but did we actually have the conversation we needed to make? Did all of that get absorbed is how I look at it.
Okay, great. Got it. Next steps.
Yeah.
I talked to the rest of your team after that call and was like, hey, we're going to go. And you're like, did he even hear a word I said?
Yes.
Which is, I mean, that's something that I naturally just need to work on. But that's a piece of it is like in that scenario of like, I walk up and she's like, sometimes you can internalize that and think, what did I do wrong? Like, am I too much? Am I this? Am I that? Mm-hmm. And so like for people who are extremely extroverted, which sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not as much, but I'm always on that side of the fence. But you can get your feelings hurt a little bit because you internalize it of like, wait, they don't want me around, as opposed to they need taking a second to think, no, they just need to recharge. I'll talk to them in an hour. Mm-hmm. And it takes a while to pick that up of like, why are they saying no? Because sometimes, yeah, you are being annoying and you need to walk away. But sometimes they just need to recharge and it has nothing to do with you. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I feel like extroverts can sometimes internalize things a lot when they're around introverts that are like, give me my space. Because the extrovert's not getting anything from having their own space.
That internalization, Jacki, you've talked about that before. What? How like you tend to internalize, or no, that was you.
Oh, that's me.
You tend to internalize things.
I'll internalize that stuff, but that's why this is such an important point when it comes to communication in the workplace. Knowing what type of communicator or personality other people are, whether it's through a predictive index or a DISC or something like that, to know this person's introverted, this person's extroverted, this person's a controller, this person's a collaborator. All those things are clues, right, on how to work better with people. So it had me thinking about like when an employer is looking to hire someone, and if I'm looking to hire someone, I'm always thinking about, well, do I want an introvert or an extrovert? Subconsciously, right? Like it's not in the job description, but don't we naturally gravitate to some extroverted people? They're easy to talk to. They're going to be great talking to clients or talking to members. And then we're sitting here and we're talking about introverts, and do I want to hire someone who needs to recharge and isn't going to be networking for 4 hours? And I looked up what were the skills that make introverts so valuable in the workplace. And I thought they were actually really interesting because I consider myself these, but I think other people misunderstand them. So what I found was introverts think more. So they take the time to process things a little bit longer. Like if you're sitting in a meeting, you're getting information.
Like less impulse?
Yeah.
Okay.
Less impulses, or they just take more time. They focus longer, which I think is definitely the case for some of us here at the table. Like I need time, like that focus time to think where the door is closed and no one's popping in, nobody's IMing me, so I could have those deep thought exercises. They're often gifted in a specific field. So we should talk about that. Do any of us feel like they're really gifted in something? And then they do the right thing under pressure. Apparently introverts do the right thing under pressure. So instead of doing the thing that everybody expects them to do, it might not be the right thing or the popular decision. They'll do the right thing because they think more and they focus longer to make those decisions. So that seems like a really big benefit for employers or people who are seeking out others to work with. Introversion is not a bad thing.
Yeah, I'd like to hear those for an extrovert because I don't not relate to those. But, I could see, I mean, obviously all of those are probably a spectrum too. Mm-hmm. But at my previous job, in my previous role, I didn't have a lot of deep thought time. In my current role, I do. Mm-hmm. And it helps a lot. Mm-hmm. And it helps me focus. But it was like the last one you said.
They do the right thing under pressure. I love that.
So, yeah. And it was your comment that you made about when you said that, the do the right thing on pressure, it may not always be the popular opinion. It made me think about tendencies of like people pleasing.
Right. Exactly.
Because that's what it made me think of, because like going to the social aspect of extroverts, like it's always like you want to be a part of the group. You want to like you even said, Matt, you're trying to find ways to like kind of even blend in depending on the crowd. And it's like, I don't like you said, do the right thing. Like, I don't care if someone's going to like it or not. Like, I'm just going to do what's right.
I think you're completely right. I think I mentioned before, I know that they don't completely interlink, but I think people pleasing comes a little bit with extroversion in a way, because I think in a way we tie, like Matt and I, we'll tie our value a little bit to our social lives, right?
A lot of
and
it.
so you want to be accepted innately. But, I don't think that they're completely linked, but I think people pleasing is a slippery slope. And as an extrovert and as a recovering people pleaser, I can see a link there. I really can.
But I think that think of the spectrum, right? There's also a world where I would probably assume that extroverts are better at connecting with people in that way of like, yes, I know we're not going to agree, but I'm going to present it in a way that I think you're going to receive it, where an introvert may be like, this is the way it is now.
Oh, I agree.
And so like, it's not necessarily that you're changing the whole point and like missing it and people pleasing entirely, but you tend to wordsmith your communication a little bit to make sure that people are going to receive it. And maybe that's just a internal thing.
Yeah.
Like that's something that I would think that extroverts would be more aware of, because you're more aware of how other people are reacting.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So what's the biggest challenge of being an introvert? So we heard the biggest challenge for an extrovert, it was getting your feelings hurt, which is so sad, Matt. The idea of a sad Matt.
Don't get me wrong. It's like not wildly dramatic, but it's
Do you just like cry?
I just sit at home when I'm not recharging with my puppy and I'm like, Romeo, I'm going to need you to hear me out. I think it's not that dramatic, but that's something to be cognizant of like if you're an introvert trying to figure out, what could I do in my world to like be more cognizant of what an extrovert goes through, is like, hey, being careful about how you deliver things, because they can internalize things too, even though they're always the bubbly one and they're always outgoing and they're always da 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 da.
Like if they can understand where you're coming from,
right?
It's a good place.
Make sure that you're not just all the time like, get away from me.
Yeah.
Toughest thing of an introvert. Gosh, that's a really tough question. I don't know, Stace, does anything come to you immediately?
Like, do you guys have weaknesses?
Oh, yeah. We don't admit them. Are you kidding me?
Mine was not a weakness. Crying is still, and I've perfected it.
No, you know what and maybe this is getting a little raw, I don't know, but I really think introverts, because we don't like kind of you were saying, like, you kind of feed off of people, you can read emotions necessarily a little bit better, you can kind of twist things a bit better, whereas I see introverts are a little bit more straight and narrow, and that sometimes can come off rather blunt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And even though we don't mean it that way. And I think that, when people use a lot more data, a lot more facts, a lot more like this is how it is, instead of like softening the conversation, I think that's kind of probably the toughest thing about introverts, is that you don't mean to be blunt. You don't mean, it's just that your natural tendency is, you've already thought it through. You've had the deep thinking session. Now here it is. It's black and white. It's black and white.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I don't need to like massage the edges. And I think that maybe that's probably the toughest thing, is you don't want to be seen that way. You're not intending to be seen that way.
People have a perception of you.
But people have a perception, and we massage the edges a lot less than extroverts do.
I agree with that. I think my biggest challenge, and I thought about it as you two were talking, was the perception of being an introvert. Like, admitting that you're an introvert is really weird for some reason in the workplace, probably because of the roles that we're in. But for some reason, I guess my perception was that revealing that I am some sort of an introvert is a weakness, or could be perceived as some sort of weakness. And so that's like a really irrational fear. But when you sit and you talk about each personality, introvert, extrovert, somewhere in between, has its pros and cons. It's just a different way of working. Like, going through this here today has helped me a lot, because I thought, man, my introversion is something I really need to work on, and I need to be less introverted. But maybe I need to be more understanding of how I work and be open with people about how I work, so they can work better with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think that there's so many strengths that come with introverts. Like, I don't think there's a negative connotation when I hear somebody admit that they're an introvert, even if they're in an extroverted role. I kind of think it's very interesting. And it just gives like that little bit of diversity that I think companies kind of look for, right? You don't want all extroverts being communicators in your company.
Could you imagine 100 Matt Fowlers? Oh.
There is a paradise.
It's funny you said that though, Jacki, that because even myself as an introvert, when I hear someone else say that they're an introvert, I naturally in my head go, oh, like
why?
Poor thing.
Oh,
See? This is why I don't tell people things.
Because maybe it's because I know that it's tough, but I immediately have like a perception in my head when someone tells me that they're an introvert, even though I'm an introvert.
Okay, well, riddle me this.
Okay. I'm ready.
Like, you and I became friends several years ago.
Yep. 2015.
And I would argue that you chose me. Because I thought, because I thought you didn't like
walk up
me.
and give her a rose?
You're it. You're my extrovert.
My friend.
You're my safe space. Because I thought you didn't like me.
And that's a very common thing
Yes.
and seen with introverts. Yes.
And then but you kind of kept coming around, and I'm like, okay, maybe she doesn't hate me. And then I'm like, actually, she kind of likes me. Okay, we're cool. So I feel like,
Jacki, play it cool.
so why do you choose certain extroverts? Is that a thing?
Yeah, well, I mean, why do you choose anybody? Like, why'd you choose Rick to marry him? It's like
He's an introvert.
I've only ever dated introverts. I've never dated an extrovert.
Okay, so maybe it's like
They're
a
all
pairing in
persons.
regards to I mean, maybe that's something. Like, I'm just thinking even like my personal life, extrovert is who I go with. But why'd I choose you?
Well, not like me
Introverts-
personally, but in general.
Introverts need more trust, apparently.
I do. I have to trust the person. So I don't think it's like I seek out extroverts by any means, because definitely some extroverts drain my battery real quick. I mean, Matt, until I got to know you better, you drained my battery in like 5 minutes.
I recall.
Yeah, so that's for me at least. I think we need balance, and we, like you said, we all sit in this range, but I think you got to have a little bit of balance. Otherwise,
Bunch of introverts in a room. Have you guys seen that video of all the dogs where they brought all the introverted dogs together to a dog park, and they were all just sitting there and no one was playing, none of the dogs were playing with each other?
What is an introverted dog? What breed?
They just don't like other dogs. I don't know. It was all kinds of breeds, but they're just like, hey, if you have an introverted dog, bring him to the dog park. They were going to try to kind of get the dogs to play together, and none of them played together. So it was just like,
Well, I would say Jacki and Matt are the farthest thing from an introverted dog.
That is something I think that can get overlooked too, is sometimes being an extrovert, it's not even about being the center and being talking, all that stuff. It's the mere fact of being around people. Even if you're not actually talking and doing those things, you're still around people.
I agree.
The thought of being alone is like, ugh.
And your FOMO.
Oh, fear of missing out.
I suffer daily.
Every single day.
It's a real disease.
I miss out on very little, but I sleep very little. Hence the gallon of energy drink that I'm drinking.
Yeah, and I don't care. I will gladly listen to somebody's story.
I've always envied you that way. And you, Stacey. You guys are okay with missing out on some things.
I'll sit back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to hear it.
Yeah.
Because, you just know what's best for you. And you're like, well, am I really going to feel great after I, network for an additional 2 hours at the end of this really long day? Or if I go on this work trip, or if I do this thing, if you overextend yourself, you kind of know when you need to take a step back and throw the towel in.
See, to you guys, it's overextending. To Matt and I, it's like, let's fill our batteries.
Let's get it going.
Yeah.
You have
Let's
a bucket to fill, a big bucket to fill.
Exactly.
But those are very good takeaways. Again, for employers, it's like if you identify people who are extroverts, those are the people who are going to want to go above and beyond and take the opportunities. It's not that introverts won't, but they just do it in a different way, a different style, and they have to break those things up into more manageable pieces in order for them to be effective.
And I think that's a good point, that it's not that they don't want to. I think sometimes in order to get them started, you need to bring it to them. Whereas extroverts may more likely come to you and say, hey, I saw this. Can I go to this? Can I do this? Can I do this? Whereas introverts, you as a manager or, as a colleague, anything, you may need to recommend it to them and say, look, this may be something that you'll find value in, that you can, learn at, or something like that, where, versus asking to just,
extroverts are seeking and introverts are more comfortable with receiving, maybe.
And that just, again, it keeps circling back for me of like, sometimes it seems obvious about introverts, extroverts, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, until you talk to people and get to know them, you don't really know how their battery's actually charging. Because I've definitely met some people where I'm like, you are the most outgoing person I've ever met in my life. And that's a lot from me.
Yeah. How do you handle meeting someone who's even more outgoing or extroverted than yourself?
It's not as hard as it might seem. Because usually you're vibing with them and you're like, then let's go do something. Like when Jacki and I first met, it was very quick that we were off doing whatever. Like, and not that she's more extroverted than me, but I would be more extroverted than her. So in that role, it's just like, you end up just kind of vibing. But there are definitely times where you're like, okay, you're a lot. And I'm a lot and I get it. And then, sometimes you like internalize that too. And you're like, wait, is this what other people are thinking when I'm around? You're like, wait.
And now your feelings hurt.
I a lot. Maybe I just get my feelings hurt really easy.
No.
I'm sensitive.
Here's a question for the introverts. So do you guys feel like you are maybe like have a harder time connecting with people, like making a true connection? So you don't like the small talk, understood. But when it comes to making key connections, is that something that's pretty easy for you? Or do you think it's difficult for you to connect with a lot of people at a higher level?
Or deeper level.
Or deeper level. Maybe that's a better way to put it.
I think I'm more quality over quantity. It goes back to that trust aspect. I'm not going to have a deep connection with a bunch of people. I will build a deep connection with those that I can fully trust.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely the same way, and I probably shouldn't admit this in my role, but it's definitely tough for me to connect with people on a deeper level. That small talk thing really resonates with me because I know that's something I could work on, and that's an acquired skill for sure. But, if I'm not on a text basis with you, then I probably don't have a good connection with you.
Do you feel like people have a hard time connecting with you back?
I do.
Hands down.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And I wonder how do I improve that, particularly in my professional life? Because you go to these events and you wonder, I really do want to talk to this person and be sociable in this group, but I don't know how. Where's the course on how to be a better talker, right? Like I know there's flashcards, like little icebreaker flashcards. Matt was talking about, how's the weather? Okay, but what's the follow-up after that? I don't have the follow-up card in my little blazer jacket to pull it out, peek at it.
Okay, what's next?
What's next? So, I gravitate towards people who can naturally carry the conversation and I follow them and try to learn from them. But otherwise, it's very hard for me, honestly.
Because I do feel like that's something that, and Matt, you can answer this too, but I feel like I connect with people very easily. And I think people relate to me very easily. But it might have something to do with like what Matt said earlier about kind of adjusting your social, depending on the person, depending on the environment, where you kind of make the adjustment and you can kind of manage to find a connecting point.
But are you connecting completely, or are they more superficial connections to kind of just get you through those conversations, that point in time? Or do you think you're truly like deeply connecting with somebody that like you can, like Stacey said, be on a text basis as soon as you walk out of there with?
I'm on a text basis with a lot of people. And I love making that connection. But I think if you can connect on even if it's a parenting level or something like that, where you kind of you're basically talking about the difference between like an acquaintance and who you would consider a friend, right? And I would consider people friends probably easier than you guys would consider people friends. I think that's what we're getting at.
Yes.
So like my deep connection is probably shallower than yours. But like in my head, I consider that person truly a friend versus an acquaintance. But we connected. So, if something were to happen in their life, and, like there's multiple people now, especially after, the past few months, that on LinkedIn, I'm not super close with them necessarily, but maybe we've connected on something at an event at one point. They get laid off. I'm one of those people that they message and then we go back and forth and then we get on a Zoom call together. And then, we actually are, I would consider them a friend now. Where, even if you did that, as an introvert, even if you did that much with somebody, if you even got to that point, which who knows, but would you consider that person
an acquaintance?
Acquaintance.
Yeah, because I'm thinking like, unless they're going to help me hide the body, that's a friend.
Like, that's a high bar.
Yikes.
But
That's a really good point. So introverts and extroverts have different ways that they evaluate what level of connection they have with people. I never thought of that.
I know, me neither, but just hearing you guys talk, and then hearing Matt talk, it just kind of made me think about that. Like maybe that is an element to extroversion or introversion.
And I love the small talk, like those little bits that you get from people that have nothing to do with anything, which is like, oh, that's kind of a cool fact about that person.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of move on. And you're like, and then you remember like 3 weeks later, you're like, who was the pitcher for the Reds in '85? And you're like, oh, I know who to call for that. At that one time. But like that's kind of if you don't have those little small conversations, I feel like you wouldn't have that like I love being someone who's like, I've got a guy. Like,
yeah.
In every instance, I've got a guy or a gal or whatever. But like that was the old saying growing up of like, you've got that person that you call. You're like, I don't know what I need, but here's my problem. Who do I call? And you're like, oh yeah, of course, you just call so and so.
But that's why I picked Jacki.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Like you find that friend who's like, okay, they know everybody, and so and that's the extrovert, and that's like an introvert keeps one in their pocket because they're like, I might need this later.
You're mine.
This is strategy. We thought us introverts thought really deep about this. We focused on who to bring into our circle that was going to expand our circle with us without us having to compromise our space and our safety in those social situations. Oh, this just got really deep.
We just realized,
because like
that's what we did.
In those definitions that we read earlier about introverts and extroverts, an introvert, one of the qualities was being guarded, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can totally see that with the people around this table. Like there are definitely two of us who are more guarded than the other two.
Yes. Guilty.
Well, something I was thinking while we were talking about friends versus acquaintances, and if I think back to people that I would consider introverted versus extroverted, when you're out and about, if I see somebody that I've met before, I'm always going to wave and say hi and be like, oh, so like, you know, where an introvert, my assumption is, and this is where I'm curious, would see that person, be like, oh, that person was there, and keep walking.
Okay. I do that on airplanes all the time. Like if I don't even listen to music or anything because I want to work. I can't listen to music and work. I'll just put the earbuds in so no one talks to me.
Yeah.
Like they think that I'm listening.
You got a little introvert in you.
Yeah,
There she is.
It's there.
Popped up.
I
when
just
she needs her
sleep.
naps.
Yeah.
So I just sleep like
I was going to ask because
instantaneously.
I think an introvert's nightmare, and even mine, quite frankly, is when someone I don't know sits next to me on the plane and starts talking to me, and then we're getting into conversation when I wanted to work or I wanted to relax or I wanted to just watch a movie. But do you talk to people that you don't know? Like, are you the person that starts up the conversation?
Not usually, because has nothing to do with introvert extrovert. I get motion sick. So falling asleep for me is like, that's my defense against it, is like, if I sleep through this flight, I'm not going to get sick. And like, if you take Dramamine, it's going to put you to sleep anyway. So, but I mean, I've definitely had like, if I see someone who's doing something, or if like, I've been even seeing somebody who's like reading a book that I just read, and I'm like, oh my God, how's that? Like, I will do that. Yeah, 100%. But the second it's like the plane is moving, there's no more talking. And as soon as we land, I'll talk again. Like once we're taxiing, you know, you've made a new friend, and like, what can you learn about the city you're getting into?
Do you talk to your Uber driver?
Oh yeah.
Do you start?
No.
You start the conversation with your Uber driver?
Usually you can tell if they want to, and in Chicago, a lot of times they're on the phone anyway, so you don't. But I've definitely like, I'll usually let them start the conversation because I'm like, they've been driving sometimes for 8 hours,
Right.
They may want to talk, or they may be like, just
Their social battery's
like
dead.
they're just dead, and so like you're kind of cognizant of that, and that goes back. I also sleep in cabs.
Yeah. That,
I
Stacey,
get motion sick. I just fall asleep. I've always been someone like, if I'm in movement in a vehicle of sorts, I will be sleeping.
okay, I've got a question, because like you're talking about starting conversations with Uber drivers or someone that read a book. I don't know about you, Stacey, but like if I'm with someone that is an extrovert like that and will randomly start talking to someone completely random, I almost get embarrassed. Yeah. Like my dad does this. My dad does exactly what you did. Like he will just randomly start talking to people because of whatever, like, oh, great shirt, or yada, whatever it is.
There's always someone like that in your circle.
Just stop, just quit talking to them. Like this is embarrassing.
Yeah.
You don't know them. Like
I will.
And then he would consider them a good
I was
friend.
gonna say, a stranger is just a friend you haven't made yet.
That's a good
But my
one.
grandpa's always done that. Like, I remember growing up, like, we could be across the country and grandpa will genuinely know somebody in the airport. And you're like, when did you have an opportunity to meet? And I'm a pretty extroverted person. And even well, as I'm getting older, it's fair that I usually see someone in an airport that I know. But I also travel a lot, so I'm in airports a lot. But I'm also like, if you think about traveling, I'm curious about this I'm on a business trip. It's me traveling for work or for whatever. I'm going to the hotel bar. I'm going to eat at the bar. I'm going to talk with all of the other people at the bar and the bartender.
Wow.
And like, that's going to be how I charge back up before I go to bed. Are you more likely to like either go sit at a table by yourself or order into your room versus actually going down? Because like the idea of sitting at a table and eating a meal alone at a restaurant is awful. I would rather just not eat.
I used to be that way, but I don't mind.
bother me at all.
Me neither.
Oh,
I actually love just having a dinner by myself.
It comes with practice. I used to
love
be like
sitting
you.
at the bar because then you could talk, even if you're not drinking, like you're talking to the bartender and it's like, sometimes they want to talk and sometimes they don't. And you can usually get that pretty quick. But I've definitely been sitting there too where I've started, you just start talking and hopefully people chime in. And then there's like this one person on the side who's just hacking away at their computer and they're just looking at you like, you could be quiet now. And I'm like,
It's
That's
usually
me.
Meagan Moody. Oh, Stacey.
That's me.
but part of me is like, okay, then you can go sit at the table.
No, this is so funny. I'll tell you this story because I talked a little bit earlier about, okay, how can I be a little bit less introverted? I'm a little bit embarrassed by this. How could I be better at my job? So lately I've been trying to go out of my comfort zone and do things like Matt would do. I would normally, like Meagan, sit at a table by myself or do room service, do my work, turn in for the night. I'm not there to talk to anybody. Recently I was in Toronto at the AIA Canada conference. And I thought, hey, instead of going to the hotel restaurant, I'm going to go discover a place and I'm going to sit at the bar and I'm just going to enjoy it. And maybe I'll, get some networking in there. Shame on me. Shame on me. Because I went to the bar as my little introverted self. I ordered my food and I was like excited because like I talked to the bartender for 2 minutes and I was like, this is progress. And there were only 2 other people at the bar and I was just keeping to myself. And eventually a girl sitting next to me started engaging in conversation with me. And we're talking for like 30 minutes and it's going really, really, really good. And I'm like, oh my God, I can do this. I'm legitimately an extrovert. I just met a lawyer. I'm networking. I'm meeting new people. I'm learning things. And the night goes on and on and on. And turns out she's like the town drunk and she just gets... She just gets drunker and drunker and, it's all in good fun, but I just like didn't meet the right person that night. And she was way too extroverted for me to the point where I had to like excuse myself and get in an Uber and go. But I was proud of myself for strafing those lines and trying to, pass my boundaries because you never know who you meet. I'm always jealous of the people who do strike up conversations when they're in the line at the grocery store or they're on a plane, because the people that I talk to that take those risks, they often meet super interesting people. Like, oh, I met a surgeon in Germany and he invited me to stay the next time I went there. Things like that. I'm like, okay, you learn from people, you make friends, and you never know who you might meet. So sometimes it is beneficial to talk to people, like if you have the propensity to do that. So like taking that, applying that to your work life, applying that to your personal life, like it could benefit both of those things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
I'm
just
proud
not
of
good at
you.
it. Thank
I'm
you.
proud of you.
Thank
That's
you.
very nice.
And I've tried to do the opposite. Like there's been times where I'm like, okay, I need to be okay with, like I said,
Eating by yourself.
with eating by myself. I'm still not, don't get me wrong. And I've definitely gone to the restaurant, but like, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to eat by myself. And then it's not 10 minutes. I'm like, I hope the waiter didn't have other tables because they're talking to me now. I failed miserably. But in the opposite direction, because sometimes you're like, okay, I need to be okay with this. I cannot be like, because it would seem on the outside like an extrovert should be able to walk into any restaurant and do, but the idea of sitting at the table by yourself and not talking to the other people and you're looking around and you're like, one is the loneliest number. Like, and you guys are like, this is great. I'm enjoying my meal. I'm thinking through my day. And I'm like, this is awful.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even taste my food. I need another cocktail. And then all of a sudden you leave and you're like, oh, that introvert thought that I was the town drunk.
Hi, I'm Ted Hughes, Executive Director of AWDA and the Senior Director of Community Engagement for the Auto Care Association. We provide our members with numerous avenues for connection and collaboration through our diverse range of committees and communities. Whether you're interested in advancing your career through the Women in Auto Care program or our vibrant Under 40 group, or simply wish to network and glean insights from fellow distributors, shops, and manufacturers, we have dedicated committees and communities eager to connect with you. Learn more at autocare.org/communities.
I'm like, okay, if there's an introvert in the office who's never part of the conversations, never includes themselves, never
introvert,
right, right, but like never comes to lunch, all that kind of stuff. I think it's worth having that conversation with that person and just saying like, do you not want to come? Because that's totally okay. Or do you want to because you can come with me, you can ride with me, you know, or whatever, and like extend the hand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think it's worth having that line of communication at least once to understand that person and understand where they're coming from and making sure that you're not missing a cue as their manager or even as their colleague, really, that, you know, you should be inviting them just because they don't make the decision themselves to kind of like include themselves.
But then as the extrovert too, I'm thinking through this, right? And something you said was, well, you can ride with me. As an extrovert, that sounds lovely.
Right.
Fill the car.
True, that's true.
As an introvert, they're like, I'm going to charge on my way through the restaurant.
I want to drive myself.
We are going to eat, and I'm going to charge on my way back to the office. I don't want to be riding with you.
It could be.
As an extrovert, you're like, what? Like, is my car dirty? Like, does it, like, what?
Do I smell?
Yeah, like, I did DO today. I did. So, but, like, that's something to think about of, like, saying, hey, you know, I'll drive myself for X, Y, Z reason. And it's interesting. I don't know. It just popped in my head of like, that would be my first thought. Would
Maybe
be like,
offering them a
why don't you ride with me?
Yeah.
And then not taking it personally when they're like, I'll just drive myself. And you're like, why would you do that? What a waste. Like that seems like in my head as an extrovert, it seems ridiculous to ever ride in a car by yourself. Everyone's going to, like, I was the first one on those Uber shares.
No.
Where like, you've got two different people and they pass it out. I'm like, let's try this out. I don't do it very often because usually it's people that it's not the people you want to be talking to. But I definitely tried it out instantaneously.
It is a nightmare.
Yeah.
It's a defense mechanism because I find myself doing that, right? Like,
Or in the first wave of 30 people, if there's 35.
I would agree with that.
That's exactly what I started thinking when you said that. I'm like, okay, introverts versus extroverts at a, let's say, 3-hour event. Do you say goodbye, Stacey, to a bunch of people before you leave, or do you just bow out?
it depends.
Okay.
Most of and introverts will do that and don't take it personally. Sometimes they will bow out. What is it called? An Irish goodbye.
Yeah, I do that all the
Goodbye.
time.
You know?
do it.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Say goodbye to who is important.
Yeah, really.
And
But you're doing it at the very end. You're not doing it
Oh,
like
yeah.
halfway
Funny.
through the
I'm
event.
very rarely leaving in the beginning.
I really wonder if at the end of these networking events, if it's just the extroverts left. And that's why
Well,
it
it's either
gets so
the
fun.
yes, I will give you that. That's 100% true.
Well, and that's the like, think of Connect, right? Like we have a cocktail reception that ends at 11 p.m. every night.
Oh.
So, like, and I'm there right up into the end.
Stacey and I are already in bed by that point.
Right. But then the next morning, you guys are like, at breakfast, you've got, and I'm like, I need a gallon of energy drink, but I'm going to make it to kind of breakfast.
Yeah. You made the last 5 minutes of breakfast. That counts.
That's pretty much where it's just interesting to think about that could just be a me thing.
Mm.
But like the extroverted side of like, yeah, there's still people like, let's keep going. And then realizing, well, shoot, I have another day to do. So I should probably like, there's your social battery, but then you're genuine, like you should get 6 to 8.
There's also adulting.
There's adulting.
And it's a hard line to dance sometimes because especially think of sales, right? Like
That's your job.
my job is to talk to people and find out what challenges are. And half the time I can't fix them, but I can point them in the direction. And that's part of building everything up, right? And that's why being an extrovert makes me better at my job. But on the flip side, there's things I've known some introverted salespeople that they can go out, they can do the thing as long as they have time to recharge, and they have their own strengths in like, yeah, they may not have the guy for everything, but they can deep think on this problem and being like, let's pull all of these things together. Let's whiteboard this out. Like, let's da. And then you come in and you're like, oh yeah, I was just going to have Sean do it.
You know, when I was younger, I wouldn't understand why anybody would want to not close out the event. Especially, like, I would have even looked at it like, my company's paying me to be here, so I need to take full advantage and maximize this. And even to this day, that's kind of a little bit how I feel. But I don't look down on people who go to bed. I actually look up to them a little bit, like, wow, you are.
All right, maybe we get a gold star.
Because I'm like, you guys, it just feels kind of like mature that you're like, no, I'm going to go. I don't mind not having FOMO, but, this is what I need. I need the sleep, whatever. I don't usually need the sleep because I'm completely charged. I swear, like, being social like that gives me so much energy that, like, I can stay at the event until 11 at night and then get up at 6 a.m. and be the first one to breakfast the next day. I can do that maybe 3 or 4 days in a row, and I'm okay.
You're a champ.
Yeah, you still are always like the first one at breakfast. And I know, like, you were out late, like, you'd be out staying at these things longer than I would be the night before. Yeah.
I can appreciate that. I mean, we work together now, and now we know exactly what our personalities are. So when I'm in bed at 10 o'clock, I know Jacki's holding down the fort until midnight, but she's still going to get up and do her responsibilities, right? So I understand that part about you. You understand that part about me, and then we're both bringing our best and contributing in our own unique ways.
Absolutely.
I wish I were a morning person.
I was up this morning, like, even this morning. I bounced out of it. I know.
Now, when you think of going on vacation, I have a boys trip every year where 15 of us go. We get a big house. Like, it's a blast. Is that something, like, when you hear that, are you like, I would rather chop off my left foot than go and stay in a house with 15 people?
That sounds fun.
We were literally just talking about this today, and I think it goes back to, who do we trust? And
we also said maximum 2 nights.
And I want to drive myself.
Yes. Introverts set boundaries, right? And, like, this is so, I love this question. It's a very calculated decision that we have to make. So who's going to be there? Can I tolerate this person? How long? Is there an escape plan? What if something goes south? I don't want to damage my reputation with this person, right? Like, this applies in personal and professional. I'm very wary of who I spend my time with, because I want to make sure that it's productive and that everybody's happy. And we talked about being people pleasers. If you're an extrovert, like, introverts are not people pleasers. So if there's something going on in a situation with people, no matter where that might be, like, we get uncomfortable and we want to be able to remove ourselves. So it takes a lot of thought and a lot of trust.
This was a huge aha moment for me just now, because my husband and I argue about this a lot. So he's an introvert. And when, a lot of times, like, I have groups of friends that want to do, like, a couples trip or something like that. And if there's even one person that he just can't tolerate or something like that, he just won't want to go. And I'll be like, just ignore that person.
Right.
Like, what do you, like, why are you letting that dictate?
It's not that easy.
It's not that easy, because there's something, like, about their vibe, about them being there, that is, it depletes your battery so much quicker than any other any other human.
Or that you can't be yourself in a situation, right? Like, if you're going out to a vacation, if you're going out to a dinner that's a work dinner, and you want to know who's on the roster, if there's someone there that maybe you're not totally into, it changes the way that you act in that situation and react. And that, I think, for introverts is a problem.
To say, do you think that's, because, like, to me, that's not true, like, for an extrovert, because if there's somebody who I don't get a good vibe from or something like that, I can just still have a great time, talk to the other people that I do get good vibes from, and totally have a great time, and it doesn't affect me whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I just never knew that about.
Imagine it's a nightmare for you guys.
Yeah, because
if you're given, like,
we're overthinkers.
Like for me, it's like, oh yeah, just bring so and so, like, whomever, and then you show up and you're like, this was not the list I was given.
Yeah,
and I'm like, awesome, new friends, and you guys are like, this was
not the list.
Yes. That was the other thing I read.
Everyone, like, I'd be like, on the way in, I'm like, did y'all want to just sit with us?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't think about it till just now, like, how miserable that must be for an introvert.
Not the list. Because you don't have the facts. You don't know the details. You didn't have time to plan this out.
That's why you get to meet them all.
Oh.
New facts. Best friends.
The internet said that introverts ask what if and extroverts ask what is.
Wait, you got to say that again.
Introverts ask what if. We want to know what all the circumstances are, who's going to be there, what's going to occur, what's the schedule, what's the structure.
All of the possibilities and all of the situations in your head.
And extroverts just ask what is it? I'm going to dive right in. That's the difference.
I can totally see that.
Yeah. We kind of like deal with it, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We'll
Just like,
we'll
okay,
adapt.
we'll
We'll
roll
figure
with
it
the
out.
punches and like get moving.
Yeah.
Fly.
And you guys are a little bit more, you want your trusted
It's like
circle.
calculated
because
I
what could
need to
happen.
know.
Yeah.
Calculate.
Interesting.
I could see that. So how does that play out in a professional world?
I think this is where you have your major learning, growing, adapting as you go through your career. I mean, Stacey said it. Her and I are both in roles that require extroverts and extrovert personalities, and having these bigger discussions, following up on emails, being on stage, and you have to, just like extroverts have to learn how to when to turn it down, when it's appropriate. We also have to learn and grow and adapt. And I think you get, if you care enough, you get better with that as you go through your career. And then you have your alone time outside of it.
Yeah, we all professionally, we all have our own circles that we run in, people that we identify with, that we've become friends with, we ask business questions to, we learn and we grow with. I think over time those grow, but we take more caution or more care as to when we turn things up into the more extroverted realm. It just takes us a little bit longer to get there than the extroverts would.
Yeah. Your comment about the list, like who's on the list and don't change the list kind of thing. Like especially if I don't know, if it's a conference that I'm not perhaps commonly at, I scope out the attendee list because I kind of look for my safe zone. Whether that's at a conference or who my, safe zone is at work, who my safe zone is in a social environment, I know that then I can gravitate towards that person if I need at least a balance to try and basically charge through that situation. And so for me, yeah, that list is really, really important. And don't just disappear off that list if you were the one that I was counting on.
I didn't even think about that.
That's such a huge one.
I feel like I often overbook myself. Like I have to be in 4 places today. And I remember we were getting ready to go to dinner and I remember thinking, oh, I should just go grab like 10 other people because like we need a big group. And I remember looking over at you and we'd asked one person, you were like, well, I guess we can just go. And it was in that moment that I'm triggered. I'm like, okay, yeah, the 2 of us is perfect. Like,
Get the cue.
it's not that I wonder sometimes if, like I caught on to that, right? But in your head, is it in a space of like, why do you need the other people? Am I not, like, do you not want to talk to me at dinner? Is that why you need 15 other people? And it's like, for me, it's just like, I'm a more the merrier. Like,
yeah,
that way 15 different conversations can be happening at the table. Where you like, is having a conversation with me not fulfilling enough? Is that something that you think about? I don't know.
That's a good question. At one point, I maybe kind of thought that, but I think it kind of goes back to the growing, the learning, adapting aspect. But so like it doesn't, I don't think that now. But yeah, early when I was younger, I would say that it's like, well, I'm like, can't you and I just talk?
So what are your guys' biggest takeaways from today?
Everyone's looking at me, so I guess yeah, and I go first. So for me, I think it's the fact that we don't always know whether people are actually introverts or extroverts, even with our best guesses, because I've got to keep going back. Matt, you brought it up first. It's how you recharge your battery.
What about you, Matt?
I think for mine is constantly being perceptive of, people aren't usually out to be mean. Blunt isn't mean. And it's something that you have to learn over time. And I think that throughout all of this, that was something that kept coming back, was like, it's really easy to internalize when an introvert needs that moment to themselves. And as an extrovert, I don't. And being cognizant of that and not taking it internally.
It's a good one.
Love that.
So my biggest takeaway is the list, because I think I've been guilty of inviting someone to dinner. Probably, Meagan, how many times have I done this to you? Honestly, don't answer that. But when I invite somebody to dinner and without checking with them first, other people are looking for dinner buddies and I want them to feel included too. So I invite I end up inviting 3 more people who weren't on Meagan's list. Who knows? So I think that that's something that I need to be aware of that could be a little triggering for introverts, that they have this list in their head, and for me to just go against it without checking with them.
And my biggest takeaway is that being an introvert is not an automatic write-off, which is good. Hiring introverts is probably a really positive thing in the workplace, but more importantly, the balance of introverts and extroverts in the workplace. It sounds like a lot of us feel more balanced when we have one of each other to work with. So that's a takeaway both personally and professionally for me.
Love that. Good one. Okay, so let's do takeaways. Introverts, what is something that you learned about extroverts? And then extroverts, what is something that you learned today about introverts?
Oh, for me, it was the feelings. I did not think it was easy to hurt your feelings.
Surprise.
Just be me.
maybe at your level, but I totally see that point of how it can be interpreted by us just saying, I need to bow out. Like, I like you, but goodbye.
I think mine is right up to the end of what we were talking about was when you come with a completed idea, being careful about challenging it, because you've put so much energy that collaboration in my head seems like, oh, this is the natural next step. Like, let's flesh this out. And you're like, I already did that. Mm-hmm. And being careful about not diving in too deep and not thinking about it first, but knowing that you've put so much thought into it, because it's not the way that I would have done it. And knowing that you guys come with a full thought and come with it all kind of done is something that I hadn't realized and kind of thought through when I'm in a collaborative environment or when I'm challenging things, doing it in a way that's a bit more sensitive, if that makes sense.
And as an introvert, my biggest takeaway from the extroverts today was that having more extroverts in my circle can complement me. So in areas where I'm more uncomfortable, I could lean on my extroverted contacts or friends in the industry to help me expand my network, to help get me out of my comfort zone to do more things, but not overextend myself, but be an extension of me through our connections.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think mine was around when we talked about how I might consider a friend before an introvert might. Mm-hmm. And like, I think that actually is a bit of an aha moment for me when it comes to people that really look at quality over quantity, more of like an introverted way of looking at it versus, the more the merrier. So like, I would quickly consider somebody one of my friends without having to test that first.
Trust no one.
Trust no one.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
Be weird.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of AutoCare On Air. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast so that you never miss an episode. And don't forget to leave us a rating and review. It helps others discover our show. AutoCare On Air is proud to be a production of the Auto Care Association, dedicated to advancing the auto care industry and supporting professionals like you. To learn more about the association and its initiatives, visit autocare.org.